Fantastic. I think I have two entertainers here as predecessors as speakers. I'm not sure if I'm going to be as entertaining as them, but I'll try very hard. So first of all, Urs and also Peter, thank you so much for having me back here in Fontainebleau. I'm really excited. I was walking through the streets yesterday and it was just super nice, I have to tell you. Dear graduates, first of all, for some of you, or for many of you, I understand it's your first face-to-face meeting. I think that's just incredible. So I'm even more than happy that you made it here for this amazing ceremony. Welcome. And also my warmest congratulations to your achievement. I think this is fantastic, and you have gone through really hard times. So really, really happy that you are here today. And also, of course, to all the families and partners, a very warm welcome here in Fontainebleau. Feels like ages since I graduated here in INSEAD. I think it must have been at the time when Louis XIV was just rebuilding the castle, kind of. I mean, in fact, of course, I was sitting here about 25 years ago, and quite with a mixed bag of feelings. Certainly a sense of accomplishment. I was very proud of having this MBA in my hands, as you must be today. But then also very excited about my next role to come, which was Apex at that time. So not knowing where to go, but this was super exciting. And it was also sad, because I was basically leaving my new friends who had gained over a whole year after a really intense and wonderful year here, and going on a journey. So today, we had to postpone the graduation ceremony by 1.5 years, which is crazy, but I'm really happy that you're all here. So many things have changed over the last 25 years at INSEAD, for sure. So INSEAD has globalized. I mean, that has been already themed today, but when I was here, there was no Singapore campus, nor Abu Dhabi, nor San Francisco, nor all these collaborations yet with international schools. And INSEAD was really still a very European school. At that time, the two biggest nations who were basically my promotion, that was the UK and France. I mean, today, we're talking about China and India. Your promotion has over 70 different nationalities. This is twice as much as we had. So definitely a much more global scheme. Other things have remained the same. The Chateau de Fontainebleau is clearly still here, and it's hosting ceremonies, it's hosting parties, which is fantastic. The Cercle International is still there. The cubicles on the lower and upper gallery are there, so I saw them this morning when I went to campus. We had our parties and wine fairs. I hope you managed to catch up a little bit over the last 2 days, and maybe even more if you stay a little bit longer on that. And I don't know if students are still freezing in these old houses in the villages. I mean, we basically had to make an open fire in the living room to keep it decently warm. I mean, this was, of course, before global warming, so things might have changed on that, I'm not sure. But again, this is 25 years ago. Today is about you, and it's about the future. So first of all, again, congratulations from the bottom of my heart for your achievement. You are holding one of the most prestigious MBA certificates in your hands. And I'm saying that with full conviction, not because I have it, but because I really believe that this is a great certificate to have. And you should be really proud of that. So when I was preparing for the speech, I was thinking about the most important messages that I wanted to pass on to you. And that was a difficult choice, because obviously there were many. But being a good ex-consultant, as I am, I settled on 3, which you know. So let me start with the first one, which might sound a bit heavy, but it's close to my heart. It's about obligation. The fact that you are sitting here today in this hall means that you are among the elite of your countries. No matter how you've come here, how many hurdles you had to overcome, I'm sure there were many for many of you, not even talking about COVID, but beyond, it does make you a privileged group of people in this world. And this gives you a unique platform and an opportunity to make your way and to make your careers. But it also comes with an obligation. Peter mentioned that, but INSEAD was created in 1957, with the first graduates here in 1959, very much under the impression of the Second World War, the atrocities that happened then, and also this century-long adversary between the large European nations. And the idea was that with founding INSEAD, there would be Europeans studying side by side, learning their language. You heard 3. I don't know how good your French is now. But the idea was really having these students study side by side, learn the language, the culture, creating friendships for life. And this would then basically translate into peace in Europe, because these people would move on to leading positions in business, in politics, in academia, and this would create peace in Europe. But what does this mean today? Because now we have a globalized world. The challenges still remain or have even grown. New powers have come up. Imperialism is making its appearance again. We've seen that recently. And it's unclear if we are post-Cold War, are we pre-Cold War? Honestly, we are not sure at the moment. The Western democracies are under threat. China has emerged as a very new superpower economically, but also politically. India is on its way, and there are also regional powers developing, obviously. So the world is changing. We haven't overcome inequality, although improvements have been made. In rich countries, the spread between high and low income individuals, families, is increasing. It's rising fast. And also, yes, many countries have undergone amazing progress and have really improved living standards. So now there's no polarization between rich and poor in the world, but it's much more of a continuum. But still, there are huge differences in wealth, in living quality, in basically their access to abilities between countries and between individuals. Thanks to your intellectual power, your stamina, your perseverance, and your willingness to succeed, you've ended up on the sunny side of the world. When I graduated 25 years ago, everything was about making money. Consulting, private equity, investment banking, corporates. Doing anything good for society was not really part of those careers. Nobody was really thinking about that in those businesses. If you wanted to do any good for society, you had to accept a low-paid job in an NGO. It was really either or. Either you were doing good, or you were making money, and you were making a career. But that is really changing now, and that's creating opportunities. Economic success and social engagement have definitely become more and more intertwined. In 2015, the world agreed that there were essential global goals that have to be achieved by 2030. And I hope you've all heard about them, the Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, as everybody uses them. That's when they were introduced. The threat of climate change is accepted by everybody, pretty much. But there are 17 SDGs in total, and they basically cover a whole range of fundamental problems: biodiversity, environmental problems, lack of healthcare services, food security, gender equality, lack of proper access to education for still a large number of children. And the SDGs create a new momentum. They're not just for NGOs or only for governments. They're also for the private sector. And that is a big shift in what's been happening. ESG is in everybody's mouth, and it's not just a fig leaf anymore. It's used as serious measurement and basis for investments. Corporates, investment advisors, private equity funds, they start using this. They start using ESGs in their processes, in their products, and in their businesses. Impact investing funds are now basically popping up on a daily basis, pretty much. And if you look at INSEAD in front of your window, INSEAD created the Hoffman Global Institute for Business and Society a few years ago to support really the cooperation between research, academia, and business in the sense of business as a force for good. My own path was a little bit different. Not so much things at the same time, but more sequential. But let me share a little bit of my personal experience on that. So I certainly did my piece in terms of money orientation. I worked at McKinsey, I worked at Apex, and at that time there was basically limited to no interest in anything but financial impact. About 10 years ago, I decided to make a shift, to leave that space and to see how I could combine my social commitment with my business experience. And I co-founded an organization called Social Business, based in Berlin, but really working globally. What we wanted to do is to create and fast-track social businesses in low and low-middle income countries. We were really pioneers at that time. And it took us quite a bit of work and failure to learn the tricks, basically. Plenty of failure in between. But today, if you look at the concept of impact investing is widely known. At that time, that didn't even exist yet, that term. And now where I am today, also as CEO at the WHO Foundation, I'm in a role where I can really push impact at scale. We can leverage the brand and the power of a global institution, but at the same time, I can also bring innovation to the nonprofit sector. As an NGO, we will incorporate impact investing, for example, into our strategy. And that is really different from any traditional NGO. So you see how these two sides really are coming together and how you can make use of that. And that's also really one of the learnings I would like to share with you. When you engage, act at scale. See where you can maximize the impact you can create. So your opportunity and obligation that I want to really encourage you today you can pursue and make your own career. But wherever you are, for-profit or non-profit, you can engage on both, and you should engage with both. Economic success and social good at the same time. There are multiple paths to do that. But please do start immediately, and don't wait until, like me, until your hair gets gray. Because keep in mind, the world is warming up. I have full confidence in you that you can do it. You're well positioned to do this. And let me tell you why. So I'm coming to my second topic, sorry, can't even count, embracing change. When I graduated, the world was really entering a phase of stability. There was 97, as you heard. We are now entering an age of turbulence. The world has, of course, never been standing still. I mean, I've experienced quite significant change in my life, but the change you will experience will be mind-boggling. And you are already the generation of change. Just to give you some of my own examples, when I grew up, the Cold War was still in bloom. We had two Germanys, not one. I experienced the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Cold War at the age of 20. And it shifted everything I knew back then in terms of how I had grown up. At the same age, I sent my first email, because that didn't exist for me beforehand. And even 7 years later at INSEAD, many of us did not have our own computers. So we had to share. There were not that many, to be honest. I hope it's gotten better. And when you got lost walking in the Forêt de Fontainebleau, you didn't have Google Maps to help you out. So we lost about 10% of our students, at least on a temporary basis. I hope you're luckier than that. You don't know what comes back, nobody knows, but change will be part of your life. It's part of our life. You have lived through COVID, which in itself has created more uncertainty than many of us have ever known before. And for the American linguists amongst you, there are many unknown unknowns in there. So you have to be ready, and you have to embrace change, always. Career paths are not linear anymore. And I'd like to share a little bit of my own journey on that front to give you a bit of a glimpse what that could mean. So you heard, I started out as a biologist. Very easily excited. I love flowers and animals, so very traditional. But my ambition was really to save the world from famine by developing drought-resistant crops. Unfortunately, during my studies, I found out I was not a researcher by heart. So I ended up with McKinsey. Kind of little shift. And believe me, that was a hard start. I entered completely unknown territory here. Horizontal slides and Excel sheets, Sleepless nights, very late evenings, and not for partying, but for different stuff. And I really started to hate Mondays and these early morning planes. So what happened is that my husband took me every Sunday to the movies. We went to an Italian restaurant. He basically filled me up with 2 pints of Bavarian beer. And then he would put me to sleep, hoping I would catch a few hours sleep, just mentally, before the taxi would basically ring the doorbell. I survived it, but it was not that easy. My next major move was basically after INSEAD. I moved on to Apex. And Apex in Germany at that time was a tiny outfit. We had 3 partners, and that was it. So I was number 4 joining Apex. And it was also only venture capital. PE at that time hadn't even arrived in continental Europe yet. That changed quickly. And you know that Apex is now one of the big global PE firms with basically tens of billions of US dollars under management. We lived in Japan for 5 years. And after coming back from Japan with our family, I was then making a shift and looking how I could combine my social commitment back with my business experience. So we co-founded Unisocial Business at that time when combination of non-profit, for-profit was still very, very vague and very unknown. But it also exposed me to very different worlds that work. We were working across East Africa, India, Latin America, the Caribbean, and our teams were 100% from the country where we invested. So I really encountered very different cultures, very different management styles during that time. And at the same time, we were also a complete startup. So we were basically sitting on our boxes, no desks, in a shared apartment of a sponsor. And for the first year, we were basically fighting liquidity, or not having liquidity, every single month. So again, I think it was embarking on a new journey, not always easy. And my latest move is basically the CEO, now the WHO Foundation. I joined last August as a second employee. I never have worked in global health before. I've never had anything to do with an international organization. So every day at the moment, I'm learning something new. It's a completely new world for me. On the other hand, there's a lot of experience I can bring to the table by building Unisocial Business for 10 years, building a completely new organization, so leveraging that. But again, it's a change, it's a different scale, and you have to keep learning. I keep learning every day. So what's my message? Don't prepare for a smooth and tranquil life while you have the aspiration to be the future leaders of the world. And seeing you sitting here, I think you do have that aspiration from everything I've heard before me. You will face serendipity. In my case, I never actively looked for these opportunities. But when they came, I took the risk. And change is not always comfortable. But imagine you're 80 years old, so you have a little bit longer to go than me, and you're sitting on that sofa and you're looking back. What are you going to be proud of? Be bold and remain curious, and commit to this learning throughout your life. INSEAD is a great platform, you've heard that. I mean, it's a great community. INSEAD will support you on this journey with, all the resources it has. But I really would encourage you to take on or keep going with that attitude. Now, I'll come to my last theme that's about diversity. And don't worry, I'm not going to give you a speech that women are equal or anything like that. Of course, we are the smarter species, but I'll leave it at that. So diversity is by now such an often used concept and has to hold for everything. And my husband told me that I should not be using it, but as I rarely listened to him, I decided I would bring it in. Diversity has many facets. It's about gender, it's about ethnic diversity, poor, rich, LGBTQ, disablement, but I think there's much more. It's about your socialization. Where have you grown up? Was it as part of a family that's part of business or political elite? Is it a middle-income household, an academic household, a worker? class household, that makes a big difference in terms of how you've been socialized. Your organizational background, where you gained your experience. Is it a non-profit, a for-profit? Is it government? Where have you gained your experience in one or different of these sectors? And the third one is working style. Everybody has a very individual working style. And that is also diversity. These aspects are important. And now I have to try and find the next page, which disappeared. Okay. It's a fact that diverse teams are better performing in the long run. And INSEAD, I think, is a perfect proof point. Cross-culture, cross-gender, cross-something. It's just much more fun. I mean, it's fun, it's power, it's success. And I hope you learned these lessons or you've experienced it yourself throughout this year when you're basically working with your classmates in the class, online or offline, and on your projects. And why is that important? Because this is not just about being politically correct or equity or representation. That is important. But it's also about none of us being perfect. We all have our strengths and weaknesses. We have our blind spots, let's face it. And learning how to collaborate with people and with organizations who can complement that, who are different from us, that will complement our talents and really maximize what we can achieve if we do that well. And I know that you're already embracing diversity much more than we did. So I just encourage you, keep pushing on that, keep continuing that work. It also goes back to my first topic. If you learn to work with a diverse set of people, it means you're best positioned to really collaborate on issues that do challenge our world and to solve them. So if you want to remember anything from this afternoon, beyond this beautiful parcel, setting, and your friends, then take away my 3 points. Your obligation is to the world and to society, while at the same time you can pursue, you should pursue your careers. Do embrace change. It's going to stay with you for your life. It's going to be an opportunity. It's also going to be a challenge. But keep embracing that concept. And last but not least, diversity. See it as an enabler of success and of collaboration. And one last piece of good news. You're leaving INSEAD, but you're not. I mean, you have come back here. INSEAD, you're already part of this fantastic worldwide community. I would say even family. I'm not sure if you like that word. I love it. Come to the reunions. Join the local community, the local alumni communities. Get engaged in topics that you're interested in. There's such a wealth of resource in that community. And for those who did not listen totally well during your classes, there's also an executive MBA that's waiting for you. Thank you.